Howdy folks, and welcome back to World of Warships with Rear Admiral Jingles. At the moment, Operation Killer Whale is the current operation of the week, although probably not by the time you see this video. And I do like Operation Killer Whale. I think it's probably one of the best balanced of the scenarios that are currently available in World of Warships. Unlike the Defensive Naval Station Newport, it's not ridiculously hard and virtually impossible to complete with 4 or 5 stars in a random group. It's still entirely possible to fail, although you have to be shockingly bad in order to fail to even complete the mission with 1 star, but well, there are plenty of shockingly bad players out there. And as I'm sure many people have noticed, judging by the complaints that I've been seeing in chat while I've been playing Operation Killer Whale, the shockingly bad players usually, although not always, tend to be in the Cyclones and the Anthonys, the free destroyers that everybody got to complete the Operation Dynamo Dunkirk scenario. Those 2 ships are really not suited for anything other than doing Operation Dynamo. And I was kind of surprised that you're able to use them in other scenarios. And unfortunately, since Killer Whale came right after Operation Dynamo, we've been seeing lots and lots and lots, in some cases up to half of the team, playing Anthonys and Cyclones shockingly badly. Like this numpty, for example. Not that, that's the target I'm shooting at. Now, this is the numpty. Look at that. Now, I have to admit some partial responsibility for the navigation error, although I'll only accept 20% of the blame. I was in front of him, after all, and he was approaching me from behind. I must have been filling his view screen. But he was continuing to blaze away, despite the fact that the only thing his shots were hitting was the friendly cruiser that he just managed to ram. The only thing he succeeded in hitting there was me. But wait, we're just getting started. At this particular point in the operation, if you're in a cruiser in particular and you've closed in to finish off the enemy Kaiser and the host show, if there are any Cyclones or Anthonys on your team, you're gonna get torpedoed. It's inevitable. This isn't the first time it's happened. This isn't even the 5th or 6th time it's happened. At some point, somebody on your team, if they're in a Cyclone or an Anthony, is going to end up putting a torpedo into somebody else on their team. It's as inevitable as death and taxes. It's almost as if this is the highest tier ship they've got because it was given to them for free to do Operation Dynamo in the previous 2 weeks. And aside from their Anthony and their Cyclone, the next highest tier thing they have is tier 3. They're just inexperienced players, and in ships that are just absolutely terrible for anything other than doing Operation Dynamo. It's not all the Anthony and Cyclone players though. There are plenty of other people who should damn well know better. Here I am in a different battle, this time an HMS Gallant, brand new premium tier 6 British destroyer. It's a bit of an awkward ship, but it's not bad for this particular scenario. I've just fired some torpedoes off against the Nassau. Torpedoes have hit. I'm sheltering inside my smoke screen so I don't get blown out of the water by this enemy cruiser. Looks like there's an air attack coming in, some torpedo bombers heading this way, but it's okay. I'm inside the smoke screen. There's a Bayern class battleship on the team who likes the look of my smoke screen. But that's alright, I don't mind sharing the smoke screen. Unfortunately, this Bayern, he doesn't like to share. And yes, those are torpedo bombers, and that's a Nassau, and yes, he's pushing me out of the smoke screen right in the middle of this lot. So, yeah, it's not always the players in the Anthony and Cyclones. It's just mostly the players in the Anthonys and the Cyclones. Look at that clown shoe, he just narrowly missed sinking the Bayern right at the start of the game. And now I have the choice of turning broadside on to this enemy cruiser and eating a bunch of citadels, or trying to thread the needle between the torpedoes fired by the idiot behind me. So my first spot of advice for anybody doing the weekly operations is if you find yourself in a team with a whole bunch of Anthonys and Cyclones, treat them all as potentially dangerous until proven otherwise. Anyway, public safety announcement aside, here's how you do Operation Killer Whale with the maximum number of stars. First thing you want to do is have a look at the team list. How many Anthonys and Cyclones do you have? Because the number of stars that you complete this mission with are inversely exponential to the number of Cyclones and Anthonys on your team. I'm not saying it's impossible to do it if you've got a bunch of players in these ships, but it's extremely unlikely. It's not just because the players themselves are likely to be exceptionally inexperienced, they're just bad ships. Our team lineup for this mission could be better. We don't have an aircraft carrier, but it could be substantially worse. We've only got one HMS Anthony and no Cyclones. So we have a team of 6 rather than a team of 7. The Anthony is not much use to the team alive. Similarly, I'm not in a particularly good choice for this mission either. This is my Hatsuharu. And Jingles, if you know it's not a particularly good choice, why are you playing it? Well, I was actually playing all of my tier 6s. I've been grinding out experience for the British battleships. I've been doing 100,000 free experience every day playing all of my tier 6s in this particular scenario. And while I'm the first to admit that the Hatsuharu as a Japanese tier 6 destroyer is not the greatest choice of destroyer in this mission, if you're going to take a destroyer, I highly recommend Soviet or American ones, the gunboat destroyers, or even, if you have it, the brand new premium tier 6 British destroyer, HMS Gallant. Thanks to the way it fires its torpedoes, it's exceptionally good at dealing with the anchored battleship and aircraft carrier lying in wait inside this base. But more on that in a moment. For now, the mission's kicked off. The first thing that you're going to have to do is eliminate these harbour mouth forts. Now, there are a few things that you need to know about these forts. If you're playing an aircraft carrier, do not send your aircraft anywhere near them. They have very, very strong anti-aircraft defences. They will decimate your squadrons. Secondly, they're very, very short-sighted. You have to be within 8 kilometres of one of these forts for them to spot you. Now, while the guns on the forts, certainly the ones inside the harbour mouth, seem to be capable of firing at ranges of anything up to 14 kilometres, they will only engage you at those ranges if you've already been spotted by something else. Now, several of the destroyers have to close to ranges of less than 8 kilometres, the Hatsuharu is one of them, in order to be able to effectively fire at these forts. So expect to get shot back at. Next up, what kind of ammunition should you be firing at these forts to do the most damage? I'm not entirely sure of what the exact breakpoint is, but I have found that if your guns are of a calibre of at least 180mm, then you fire armour piercing at these forts regardless of the range, because it will penetrate and it will do huge amounts of damage. So in effect, that means ships like the Molotov, the premium tier 6 Soviet cruiser, with its 180mm guns, should always be firing armour piercing at these forts. The Furutaka, the Auber, with their 203mm guns, should always be firing armour piercing, and battleships should always be firing armour piercing. Everybody else, stick to high explosives unless you're at very, very short range. Ships like the Nürnberg, the Kirov, the Cleveland, ships like the Budjoni, with their 150 or 152 or 155mm guns, you cannot penetrate the armour of these forts with armour piercing ammunition unless you're very, very close, and we're talking ranges of less than 5 kilometres. If that's the case, then by all means fire armour piercing. You will do a lot of damage, but you'll also do reliable and consistent damage with the high explosive. Jingles, what about the British cruisers? They don't have high explosive ammunition, and they have 152mm guns. Yep, sorry, you guys are screwed. It's just the way it is. British cruisers firing their semi-armour piercing ammunition just can't damage these forts unless they get suicidally close. And I don't recommend you try to get suicidally close, because there's a reason why it's called suicidally close. Some of these forts fire guns that can and will citadel you and take half your health off with one hit. If you're doing this operation in a Leander, just leave the forts to the rest of your team. Don't worry, there'll be plenty of things for you to shoot at that you can damage with your semi-armour piercing, such as this destroyer that guards the southern entrance to the harbour. There's also a Karlsruhe, the German tier 4 cruiser, that spawns in the northern entrance to the harbour. Either of these targets are prime candidates for punishment by British cruisers with their 152mm armour piercing. This little bugger down south is not alone. He's going to be accompanied by a Kolberg, German cruiser, and a Nassau, German tier 3 battleship. Now, it may just be a tier 3 battleship, but it is as tough as old boots. It's got a ton of armour, it's got lots of secondaries, and its 12-inch main battery guns are entirely capable of scoring citadels on any tier 5 or 6 cruiser that happens to be taking part in this mission. If you're lucky enough to have an aircraft carrier on the team, that Nassau should be his priority target at the beginning of this operation. Oh, watch where you're going, Jingles. Don't worry, I'm going to make up for it. I'm going to give this Königsberg my smokescreen, because that Nassau is capable of doing huge amounts of damage to him. Now, he's gotten his torpedoes away as well. But one thing I've noticed, and I'm sure most of you have noticed as well if you've played this operation, is that the enemy ships in this operation seem to possess some sort of sixth sense. It's almost as if something's telling them exactly when torpedoes have been launched at them. It's almost as if somebody's telling them exactly when somebody's switching to armour-piercing ammunition because they're showing a nice broadside, and they have an uncanny ability to make exactly the right turn at exactly the right time to avoid torpedoes and to avoid taking citadels from armour-piercing ammunition. I'm just saying, it's a little suspicious. Now, you'll notice that all of these ships have got a sort of crosshair icon above them. Oh, my torpedoes are going to be back up soon. At this kind of range, he shouldn't be able to avoid all of them. A few more seconds. I just need to stay ahead of him so he can't torpedo me. There we go. And we'll keep using the guns because, hey, they're pointing in this direction. You see the turn? You see, this is what I'm talking about. And oh look, guess what? The Anthony's the first one on the team to die. Well, who saw that one coming? Okay, Kohlberg is down. Now, yes, as I was saying, you will note certain of these ships have got little crosshair icons above them. That Kaiser over there, for example, the German Tier 5 battleship. This is the game's way of telling you that these are priority targets. These are mission objective targets. Now, I can't remember this being in Operation Killer Whale the first time I played it, a month or so ago. But it's definitely present here in the game now, and that's going to prove invaluable later on. More on that when we come to it. For now, because I came around to the south in a destroyer, you see, it can be very, very difficult sinking this Kaiser if you approach from the north, because there's a dirty great big concrete jetty on one side of the ship. And to hit him with torpedoes, you either need to come around from this direction or be in something British that can fire single torpedoes. See, if you're in something British, it doesn't matter what side you approach the Kaiser and the Hosho from. Both ships have just a small part of the bow of the ship sticking out at the end of the jetty, so just a small part of the ship that can actually be hit by torpedoes from the other side. But oh, hang on a second, Hosho's sending his torpedo bombs after me. Luckily, the Hatsuharu actually has a fairly decent anti-aircraft armament. I mean, it's no Cleveland, but you can shoot some of them down. In fact, I just did. Hang on a second, second squadron coming in, although it does look like it's going for that Königsberg rather than me. Is it? No, I don't think. No, no such luck. It's going for me. Well, aren't I the popular one? There we go. We've sunk the Kaiser. Now, if I was in, for example, HMS Gallant, the British premium tier 6 destroyer, you can just see the tip of the end of the Hosho sticking out from the end of the jetty. So I would also be able to put torpedoes into the Hosho from this position. Can't really do that. Well, you can, but you might hit with one if you're lucky in any other destroyer. If you were in the Gallant, you could put 4 torpedoes from one launcher into the Kaiser, and they would all be capable of hitting exactly the same spot, and 4 torpedoes from this angle into the end of the Hosho over there, because you can fire them one at a time. As it is, I'm just going to have to work him over with my guns. And, you know, that works too. Okay. First objective complete. Destroy all 6 enemy ships at the base. Those were the ones indicated by the crosshair icon above them. There's another secondary objective. Destroy enemy forts and onshore facilities. We have to knock out 18 of them. So, as well as the fort, there's a number of fuel storage facilities, aircraft hangars, barracks, things like that. All these things have to be destroyed in order to qualify for one of the secondaries. There's also a bunch of Cimarron-class transport ships trying to evacuate the harbour when you attack, and sinking all of those is also another secondary. And I highly recommend that if you are anywhere near those transport ships, pay very, very careful attention to what's behind you, because I'm just saying, if there are any Cyclones or Anthonys on your team, watch out for torpedoes coming in from behind you. Jingles, why would a destroyer be wasting torpedoes on a transport ship when they could be sinking carriers and battleships? Yeah, I know, but hey, I'm just saying, watch out what's going on behind you. So, we've completed the primary objective. Now we have a new primary objective. Withdraw to the designated area with at least half of the operational ships. And the designated area is indicated on the map by the anchor icon. Now, be careful. Make sure you're paying attention to the map, because it can appear, there it is over there, to the south, but it can appear in two possible locations. It can also appear up to the north, around about here. Now, the wording of that new primary objective is very, very important, and this has caught people out as well. Withdraw to the designated area with at least half of the operational ships. What does that mean? Well, it means at least half of the ships that are still alive on your team, and that's very, very important. Particularly when you look at the second of those two new secondary objectives. Destroy the enemy's first and second reinforcement groups. The first reinforcement group consists of two ships. There's going to be a destroyer to the south, and there's going to be a cruiser to the north. The second reinforcement group is also going to consist of two ships. There's going to be a battleship to the north and a cruiser to the south. Now, if you plan on completing this mission with 5 stars, you're going to have to split your force to go after both of those reinforcement groups. And there he is, the Kolberg's just spawned in. This is one of the 2 ships in the first reinforcement wave. And you can see he's got the crosshair icon above his ship. Now, this is vitally important, because there's also going to be a 3rd, 4th and 5th reinforcement wave. None of these are going to have the crosshair icons above them. You do not have to sink any of those to complete secondary objectives. Well, they're going to do their damn best to try to sink you. So pay particular attention to the ships that have that crosshair icon above them, and only those ships that have that crosshair icon above them, because those are the only ones that must be sunk to complete all of the secondaries and finish this mission with 5 stars. Now, what can happen is that while chasing after the ships from the 1st and 2nd reinforcement waves, you've split your team. Some have headed north to deal with the Kolberg and the Kaiser that's going to spawn further to the north. Some of you have headed south to deal with the destroyer, who it seems has already been spotted and is being dealt with by the team further over to the east, just as we've sunk the Kolberg. That Kaiser has not spawned to the north just yet. And if you end up chasing him up to the north when the extraction zone is down there to the south, or vice versa, if the extraction zone's in the north and you're chasing after enemy ships to the south, what can happen is that you may kill them, but you may then find that you're too far away to make it to the extraction zone in time, and half of the surviving ships must make it to the extraction zone to complete the primary objective. If that is the case, you need to die, because it's half of the surviving friendly ships that have to make it to the exit zone in order to complete the primary objective. That up there is the Kaiser, which is spawned, well, he spawned some time ago, but he's just been spotted, and that down there is the Kolberg, which spawned as the 2nd reinforcement wave. We've nailed the first 2 ships in the 1st reinforcement wave. Now, to complete this mission with 5 stars, we need to sink the 2 enemy aircraft carriers, and there's one of them. And we also need to sink that Kaiser up to the north and that Kolberg down to the south. And then half of the surviving ships on the team have to make it over there to the west and extract. And that would be fairly simple if it wasn't for the fact that there is a 3rd, 4th and 5th reinforcement wave. And here they go. Carriers sending dive bombers against me. I got away with that one. I managed to get my torpedoes away. We're going to start lighting them up with the guns, since hey, I'm detected anyway. But we're going to keep manoeuvring, because these guys definitely don't like me very much. It's as if, what did I ever do to them? Now, here's the thing. That secondary objective, to sink the 2 enemy carriers, they don't spawn at the same time. So if you want to kill them both, you have to hang around. And a lot of people get caught out, like that Königsberg up ahead, who saw himself a very, very vulnerable carrier sitting up there and closed in to get his torpedoes away. when the fourth reinforcement wave spawned with the second carrier and all of his escorts as well. So that Königsberg is probably not going to survive this. We've nailed one of the carriers. Second carrier has just spawned. There he is. Now this is the point where things can get very, very confusing, and until Wargaming went to the trouble of marking your secondary objective targets with a little crosshair icon above them, it was a nightmare in the past when you're trying to do Operation Killer Whale, when there are this many ships and aircraft flying around. Which are the ones that you have to sink to complete the secondary objective to sink all 4 ships in the first and second reinforcement waves? Because at this point we're up to 4 reinforcement waves, and there's going to be a 5th one spawning very, very soon too. This is why you need to be paying attention to the ships that have that crosshair icon above them. Now the Auberon team has just sunk the Kolberg that was over here. That just leaves the Kaiser, and he's up there to the north being engaged by our Cleveland. But we are losing ships at an alarming rate here, and we still have to sink not only the Kaiser but the second enemy carrier as well, and the Cleveland has just managed to sink the Kaiser. Good boy. So that just leaves the second enemy carrier, and I've got all kinds of targets shooting at me here, so I'm dropping the smoke. And the carrier's nearly done. My torpedoes are nearly reloaded, but he's going to be sunk by gunfire long before my torpedoes reach him. So swing the guns around, pop a salvo in his direction, and bang. The carrier is down. All 4 ships in the first and second reinforcement waves are down. Now half of the operational ships must make it to the designated area in the next 3 minutes and 41 seconds in order to complete the primary and get this mission done. And since right now there are still 3 of us alive, that means 2 of us have to make it out, or somebody has to die. Please let it not be me. I'm too pretty to die. Oh crap, torpedoes. That guy managed to get them away before I sank him. Oh, that one's going to be awfully close. And swing the arse out. Yes, I don't think so. Not today, sunshine. Right. Oh, spot of good news. Well, not good news for the Nürnberg. He's just been sunk. But good news for the team, because now there are only 2 of us left. So that means only one of us has to make it to the exit zone to complete the primary objective. And it's so close I can smell it, but that Königsberg is going to be a problem. He's shooting at the Cleveland at the moment, but I've got his attention now. And he's going to start shooting at me instead. And yeah, I mean, I did torpedo him. I mean, if I was in his position, I'd be shooting at me as well. And yeah, oh no, he's knocked out my engine. That's not good. I mean, I still have last stand on the Hatsuharu, so I can keep going without the engine, but things are getting kind of critical, so we're going to use damage repair. We're going to get the engine back up, and we're going to try and sink this little bugger. Because, yes, thank you, Mr. Cleveland, well done. That was the only serious threat remaining. It's time to boogie on down. There's nothing in a position to stop me from making it to the exit zone, and since there's only 2 of us left, as soon as I enter, it's mission complete. And that is Operation Killer Whale, with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gold stars. What do you get for the 5th star? Day's premium time. But for 4 stars, you get a 10-point German captain, which can be assigned to the ship of your choice. Now, as with the other operations, you can only earn the rewards for any given operation once, so unfortunately you can't keep doing it, completing it with 4 stars and farming 10-point German captains to equip your entire German fleet. That Cleveland did very well. We're going to send him a couple of compliments. May as well use them. In fact, the whole team did very well, with the exception of, oh look, the guy in the Anthony. Well, what a surprise. Who saw that one coming? And that is how you do Operation Killer Whale with 5 stars. I do like this operation. I do think it's pretty well balanced. It does require a certain degree of not sucking, which can make it challenging to complete with a respectable number of stars in a random group. If possible, it's always best to do these operations in a division with people you know and trust. And I've actually been doing quite a lot of that with Pointy-Head Jedi and Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper, you may know, is a World of Tanks console community contributor for Wargaming, but he's also pretty damn good at World of Warships as well. In fact, we're going to finish off today's video with one particular example of a rather close finish that we managed to pull off while playing in a division. In the meantime, take care, and I'll catch you next time. Well, with any luck, the Cyclone will die, so only one of you has to get inside the circle.
That's true.
Doesn't look like he's got
Hooray! The Cyclone did something useful.
Last
Got
stand.
himself killed.
Some 20 seconds. It's not going to be quite the photo finish of the last one, but it's still close.
In before the Koenig Citadel's you.
Fortunately, you can't get detonated in ops.
4, 3,
Come
2,
on.
1.
Come on!
Hey!
Yes! For goodness.